Hi everyone, welcome to the Highlights from Ukraine podcast, your daily audio summary of the latest news reported in the Ukrainian media. Happy New Year, and we are back from a short break. But we don't come empty-handed, as during the holidays we've recorded an interview about the Ukrainian state at war and how it functions. It is already available for our Patreon supporters. To join them, follow the link in the description to this episode. There you can support us starting just from $5 a month. My name is Artem, and here is the news. For 685 days, Ukraine stands strong against the forces of the Russian invasion. President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky informed in his evening video address that he held a meeting of the staff. The participants discussed the supply of shells and drones to the military in detail, distribution between brigades and units, daily needs and their costs. Quote, "We also discussed the launch of new production lines for weapons and ammunition in Ukraine at our enterprises and together with partners," unquote, said the head of state. Zelensky added that they considered the supplies Ukraine expects to receive this year. He informed that separately at the meeting, work of Ukraine's Air Force was analyzed, in particular the results of shooting down Ukrainian missiles and drones. Quote, "We continue to work with all our partners to bolster our air defense, and at the same time to increase pressure on Russia. The world's sanctions are definitely working, and they are working well. There is clear evidence of a slowdown in the Russian defense industry," unquote. The president said that for the sanctions to be 100% effective, the schemes for circumventing them must be blocked. President Volodymyr Zelensky had a phone conversation with Alexander De Croo, Prime Minister of Belgium, who will chair the Council of the European Union in the first half of 2024, reports European Pravda. The Belgian Prime Minister noted that his conversation with Zelensky took part before the EU summit on 1st of February, where a decision on a 4-year program to support Ukraine worth €50 billion are to be made. He promised that the EU will continue to increase its support for Ukraine. The President's office reported that Zelensky discussed with De Croo the support of Ukraine in the context of the Belgian presidency of the Council of the EU, bilateral defense cooperation and the implementation of the Ukrainian peace formula. At the same time, according to Politico, Hungary may lift its veto from the €50 billion aid package to Ukraine on condition that the funding will be reviewed annually. Politico states that this would give Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban an opportunity to block funding for Ukraine every year, or to achieve concessions from Brussels in exchange for lifting the veto. According to the proposals, the EU would provide Ukraine with €12.5 billion in the form of grants and loans, which would reach the amount of €50 billion suggested by the European Commission over 4 years. According to media reports, the EU is preparing a Plan B with €20 billion of financial aid for Ukraine in the event that Hungarian Prime Minister blocks the main €50 billion plan. We would really appreciate if you could recommend us to your friends and family, as well as share information on social media. This way more people would learn about the podcast and truth about Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Coordinator of the National Security Council of the White House, John Kirby, informed that the US has evidence that the Russian military continued to strike Ukraine with North Korean-made ballistic missiles last week, reports Ukrinform. He recalled that the US had reported on Russia's launch of a North Korean ballistic missile over Ukraine on December 30th. Later, on January 2nd, Russia fired about 10 missiles at Zaporizhia, Kyiv, Kharkiv, and other cities. Then on January 6, Russian forces again launched several North Korean ballistic missiles at Ukraine. At least one of them hit Kharkiv. Kirby noted that in connection with this, the United States joined the statement of 47 countries which condemns the export of weapons from North Korea, as well as their use in Ukraine. The representative of the White House also emphasized that the United States will continue to introduce sanctions against all those who facilitate the illegal transfer of weapons to the Russian aggressor. The UN mission in Ukraine assessed that more than 14.6 million people, or 40% of Ukraine's population, will need humanitarian aid this year, reports Suspilne. According to the UN, the war also forced about 6.3 million Ukrainians to go abroad. The organization notes that after the start of the full-scale invasion of Russia, the people survived almost 2 years of incessant hostilities. Civilians are killed and injured every day, and their homes and critical infrastructure are destroyed. The UN emphasized that the first week of January brought a wave of attacks to Ukraine, which began on 29th of December and continues to this day. Thank you for listening to the Highlights from Ukraine podcast. We're a commercial initiative of just two people, and we need your help to grow. Share information about the podcast, rate us in the app, subscribe to our Patreon. With your support, we're getting better. We call on you to demand from governments of your countries to impose the toughest sanctions possible on Russia and its citizens to stop their invasion of Ukraine.